All right, more thoughts on Weapons because I'm eager to talk about this movie. So I've already kind of given the blow-by-blow slash recap slash plot twist reveal slash spoilers in terms of like what exactly it is and who the big bad guy is and all that. But now I just kind of want to talk about the horror elements of this movie and like what I actually found creepy slash scary slash unsettling and like what my favorite parts in that regard were. So there's a few scenes slash sequences that come to mind that I found like, okay, like this actually kind of feels like a horror movie a little bit. But I still stand by what I said earlier, meaning this is not a traditional horror movie. It's not a lot of like horror. It's more like mystery thriller. But with that said, there were, like I said, a handful of scenes, small handful of scenes that did feel kind of like traditionally horror-ish. So the first scene slash I guess like sequence maybe that like kind of like made me be like, oh crap, like this is kind of creepy, was when Julia Garner's character, and it's like her chapter is the first one to kick it all off. She goes to the house of the kid who did not go missing, the only kid in her class who did not go missing. She goes to his house to try to talk to his parents, but then like sees his parents through the window and they're just like catatonic, frozen, lifeless, sitting on the couch, just zoned out. And then later in the evening, she returns to the house and kind of like stakes it out front, like parked out front of her car. And then she like falls asleep in the car, and then it's nighttime. And then while she's asleep, the camera is like focused on the front door of the house, which is closed. And then it like opens quietly, almost like very smoothly, very eerily. And then you see like the mom, or what you presume to be the mom, I think it's the mom, under the control of the witch, kind of like hobble outside toward the car with like a pair of scissors in her hand, I should say. And she like walks toward Julia Garner's car, and Julia Garner's asleep the whole time. And on that scene, you're definitely like on the edge of your seat, like, oh crap, what's she gonna do? She gets into the car, she snips her hair without Julia Garner noticing at all, which is insane. Like, talk about heavy sleeper. And then later you come to find out that the witch was using the mom to then get Julia Garner's hair so that she could then like put like a curse slash send someone to go after her. Anyway, that scene was creepy. The other scene slash sequence that stood out to me in terms of like scariness was Josh Brolin's dream sequence when he gets to like his character's chapter. I think it's chapter 2. And you know, he's like devastated over the loss of his son, sleeping in his bed. He has this like prolonged nightmare sequence where he like sees his son running away and he tries chasing after his son. And then eventually he like comes back into his son's room, sees his son like sleeping in his bed, and he starts like talking to his son, saying, hey, where'd you go? And the son is just like mute, not saying anything, just staring at him. And then the son's face turns into the witch's face. It's like a good jump scare. It scared the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie, that was creepy. Now, the one sequence slash scene that I know everyone is gonna talk about is the principal who goes on like a bloody rampage and attacks Julia Garner at the gas station. Look, that whole scene and sequence was fine. I didn't necessarily find it like scary per se. It was more shock value than anything, in my opinion. But yeah, with that said, I guess it was one of the quote unquote like scary scenes of the movie, if you will. Again, I didn't really find it all that scary. More shock factor than anything and just gruesome. But that was pretty cool. And then the last like scene slash sequence that like I found genuinely creepy slash scary was the chapter with the junkie, which is like the funniest chapter because it's basically just a junkie living his life, being like a blatant criminal, trying to score. There's like some funny moments in that, like just kind of seeing how he goes about his day to day. But basically, he breaks into the house where the kid who didn't go missing, his parents are like frozen catatonic under the spell. He breaks into their house, starts stealing their crap, runs into them, but they don't do anything to him at first, and then finally they like snap out of the spell because the witch tells them to, and then they start chasing him out of the house. He makes a run for it. He goes back to the forest where he lives. He lives in like a tent in the forest. He's like a homeless dude essentially, and he runs into the witch in question, and he sees her in the distance. She's like waving to him, super creepy. And the witch in this movie, by the way, looks like a clown. She's got like a red wig on the whole time, clownish kind of makeup, creepy old lady face. Anyway, it reminded me of the movie The Witch. There's some shot in there that kind of just reminds me of The Witch for some reason, and funny enough, it's about a witch. So I thought that was genuinely creepy and like one of like the last like, oh damn, like this is like eerie, creepy.